How's it going, dudes? So you have no idea what a metaphor is and want to literally become the man who sold the world. Well, in order to accomplish that fever dream, you are of course going to need to become the man who bought the world first. But where would you possibly find something that is going to give you the necessary practice for when you put your plan into action? Believe it or not, the Bad Board Game channel has a bad board game for that. More soul-shattering news at 11. Global Survival, or as it's more commonly referred to, Monopoly featuring that country that held the World Cup that one time. Ah, that really narrows it down. Global Survival is the 1992 board game that was produced by Vision Quest Enterprises, which later got another release in 1995 by Avalon Hill, a much more reputable company seeing as they've made more than one game. Even so, that reputation could not save the game's image, which can favorably be described as less than stellar. This is by far one of the worst reviewed titles ever published under the Avalon Hill banner, scoring one of the lowest Board Game Geek scores I have ever seen on the platform and just barely managing to beat out the Black Magic Ritual Kit, which isn't even a board game. But if there's one thing that we've learned from our time here, it's that sometimes these scores can be either outdated or misguided. So I've gone out of my way to purchase this darn thing for myself in order to run it through our usual categories. And once we're done, we should be able to answer the question currently boring a hole into everyone's gray matter: is global survival just absolutely abysmal? We've got quite the low bar to clear, so let's dive right on into this dumpster fire, starting off with the game's design. Global Survival is not a difficult game to wrap your head around design-wise, with many people looking at what this game has to offer and drawing an immediate comparison to Monopoly. This is just their opinion though. Every time I open up my box, I myself get reminded of Connect 4. This likeness is best exemplified by the game's board. 4 corners, 4 lanes, and properties in between. Why, it's everything that you could ever hope and dream for. In fact, maybe a little more than you can ever hope and dream for, as while Monopoly boards usually come equipped with a solid 40 spaces, Global Survival decided to up that total just a little bit, having you journey through its completely reasonable 200 board spaces on your adventure. Now, you might be thinking, oh, that's 5 times as much? That is quite a lot. But luckily, since there's that many, there's certainly going to be a lot of variety in the spaces on offer, yeah? Small issue with that. 191 of those are property spaces. Quite the buyer's market, I must say. This thing is so jam-packed with spaces that they had to double stack the lanes, and it has a total of 9 non-property specialty spaces. Heck, Monopoly is 1/5 the size of this, and it has 12! We'll get into what this does to the gameplay later, but for now, let's focus in on why this thing has so many properties. Simply put, because it absolutely had to include every single country it could think of that existed in 1992! All your favorites are here. We've got Bolivia, we've got Djibouti, we've got Chad, we've got Ireland with the wrong flag colors. Heck, we've even got recently decommied Russia for all you freedom lovers out there. Oops, looks like we've made a bit of a mistake here. Glory to the CCP. But what's the point of even buying a property if you can't flex on everyone with your brand new deed? So Global Survival has one of those for each and every nation up for sale. They're a little large. The deed cards for each nation are huge, making them impossible to have lined up one by one like you can do in Monopoly. And the reason that they are so big is because these things are packed to the brim with information all about the country you are buying. GDP, form of government, literacy rate, imports, exports, trade partners, even a paragraph full of just general information. All of this not only 3 decades out of date, but also completely useless in terms of the game. None of this information has any impact on the game at all, and while it is really cool that they did this breakdown for every nation so that you can get the chance to learn more about them, it makes the cards incredibly unwieldy with how many of them you are going to have, which is a lot. Other than those, the game also comes with the player fact sheet that you will use to keep track of your purchases, the bank debt sheet to track your debts, the consortium sheet, which is just a whole other deal, the glossary for all of the terms, the situation scenarios book where they keep all the disasters, and the money. Oh boy, the money. The currency of this game is in the form of the Unified Global Dollar, which comes in 11 different denominations ranging from the $1 million bill to the $1 trillion bill. If this sounds like it's a bad omen, yeah, just a smidge. But we'll get back into that travesty soon. For now, let's go ahead and close out the design segment. Overall, the board is cluttered, the cards are stupid large, and there are quite a few oddities. Like how the color orange is completely absent from the entire board, and how Bulgaria is worth 63,580 Bulgaria. Say what you want, they know their worth. But past those issues, everything does look pretty nice here. Good presentation, holds up well for a 30-year-old game, and has a ton of character, especially with all that extra country information that the game includes. But a good design with some rough spots can really only get you so far, as people are going to be a lot more interested in what you do in the game than how it looks. So let's check out the rules inside this beast and see how you'll be surviving globally. Global survival takes place in a future where all countries are unified under a single international currency, the global dollar, which has replaced all individual national currencies and is jointly controlled by the global bank and the UN. Be sure to comment your personal belief toward this system as well as your political ideology below. For a challenge, do it using only emojis under the Food tab. Alongside this, each player is affiliated with a corporate consortium representing the 12 wealthiest and most powerful industries. These consortiums are trying to attain global dominance through the acquisition of worldwide assets, represented here in the act of buying countries like someone would a used car. And what kind of government you say it has? That one there runs on a republic. I'm more of a monarchy guy. The objective of each player is to acquire blocks of countries to establish global monopolies, which will reward a sizable payout as well as adding a sizable tariff to the rent of anyone landing on that space. Con-freaking-found it! The winner of the game is the player who achieves the highest total net assets. And because of this, the rules state that games can be played for anywhere from 1 hour to multiple weeks. Oh, I'll just clear out my whole month just in case. For the last bit of the intro, the game says that Global Survival is a game of intellect, nope. Skill, nope. Business negotiations, nope. Sound decision making, nope. And luck, there it is. It also claims to be a perfect tool of learning for college, university, and high school students in that order, as well as business people, social scientists, geographers, political scientists, and all individuals interested in world affairs. Finally, a game for the whole crew! But now it's time to begin setting up the game. Global Survival actually carries a very unique way to determine player responsibility by dividing all of the actions players will do into jobs that carry salaries within the game. For example, the banker for the game will be referred to as the global banker here, doing all of the normal banker things, but being rewarded for their hard work by getting an extra $40 billion added to their net worth at the end of the game. Fun fact, that is a little over half of what Jeff Bezos made in 2023. There are 4 jobs up for grabs, with banker carrying the highest salary because that person will legitimately be working the entire gosh dang time. Other jobs include the loan officer, who will manage the debt sheets for each player, the real estate syndicator, who manages all of the country cards and is in charge of distributing those on a purchase, and the lowest paying job, global aid director, who I kid you not is in charge of taking the money from the banker and giving it to a player whenever they land on an aid space. All they are is a middleman, and this means that if the banker lands on an aid space, they have to give the money to the aid director, who then just gives it right back to them. This is completely pointless, extremely funny, and probably my favorite part of the game. But now that everyone has landed their jobs, let's get them the stuff they need to start working. Each player selects one of the 8 game pieces and takes the player fact sheet they'll use to track both their purchases and their consortiums. Then everyone rolls the 4 regular dice to see who goes first. What's that? I'm missing a few things. Good eye, viewer! My copy did not come with the dice nor the player pieces, and out of every game I have gotten off of eBay to show off here, this was the very first one I ordered off of Noble Knight Games. What a first impression! As such, we'll need to improvise. Luckily, there's a picture online of the very unique dice needed for this game, so we're gonna be able to achieve a similar effect with some of the dice from Envelopes of Cash and this thing of D&D dice. As for the replacement game pieces, I do have quite the collection of options to choose from, but I decided to go with the statues from Fortnite Monopoly because they're absolutely massive and don't fit in at all. Now that we have the game stitched together, we can continue. Each player needs to determine the consortium that they will be permanently affiliated with for the entire game by rolling the 12-sided consortium die. Personally, I'd prefer if you could pick which consortium was your permanent one because you could roleplay as an official from that background, but I guess getting strong-armed into being a healthcare CEO works too. Now, throughout the game, players will be able to join or leave other consortiums due to various events. But no matter what, you will always stay affiliated to your first one, so you are ride or die with transportation. You went all in on Amtrak? I'll start preparing the service. Once that's taken care of, it's time to break the game. The global banker will distribute everyone their starting funds that they'll use to purchase properties with. And with the biggest end of game boost being $40 billion, can you guess how much each player starts the game with? 100 billion? 300 billion? 500 billion? Try $2.5 trillion. Yeah, I'm not a fan. The reason the banker makes so much is shown right at the start when he divvies out the starting bills for each player. 5 1 millions, 5 5 millions, 5 10 millions, 6 20 millions, 3 100 millions, 3 500 millions, 3 1 billions, 3 5 billions, 2 10 billions, 3 20 billions, 4 100 billions, 2 500 billions, and $1 trillion bill. Each player also gets an additional $2.5 trillion in credits that they can take on as debt to help with any purchase. We're going to save what this does to the balance of the game for the gameplay section, but as a little sneak peek, you can buy the nation of Portugal for $22 billion, or about 0.8% of your starting cash. And Portugal is somewhere in the middle when it comes to cost. You can get the Vatican for $10 million. But let's leave that brain melt for the gameplay section. For now, it's finally time to start the game. Whoever's going first will roll all 4 of the standard dice and move the amount shown. No doubles to go again with this one. Despite the massive amount of spaces, there are really only 2 types of space you can land on: country and special. When you land on a country space, you can either buy it if it's unowned, pass if you don't want to buy, or pay the customs fees if another player already owns it. No auction mechanic here. The innovation on display here is truly inspiring. If a player chooses to purchase a country, they can use cash and/or credit to complete the transaction, and if you use credit, you can kiss your game goodbye. Credit in this game should only ever be used to make the loan officer's job hard, never as a legit strategy, as I'll cover in gameplay. But if you are going to use credit, it's very easy to determine your loan details. Interest rates, let's go! Simply declare the amount you intend to borrow, roll the numerical interest rate die to determine the percent interest that's applied to your loan, and make sure you start paying that bad boy back when you get the chance. Beware though, the global bank does institute periodic balloon payments where they'll call anywhere from 5 to 100% of your loan due if the right scenario happens. So you better pay that sucker off quick. If you have managed to purchase all of the countries within a specific continent, you will achieve a global monopoly. This will not only cause the rent of all of your properties to triple, but will also award you a lump sum payout immediately depending on which monopoly you achieve. It is good to keep the global monopoly rules in the back of your head, as this can definitely happen during regular gameplay and isn't at all some fever dream cooked up by the designer. If you find yourself running low on dosh, 1, how, and 2, you can add some more bands to your bank account by selling one of your countries. You have 2 options when selling a country. You can either dump it back to the real estate syndicator for the quick sale value on the bottom, or you can try to sell it to another player for whatever they are willing to pay for it. Will they buy it off of you? Unlikely, because nothing in this game matters, but hey, the option's there. For a break from just ripping off Monopoly, we do have something truly unique for the title: the situations that can occur. Once all transactions relating to a country space that was landed on are concluded, which is horrible wording, but we decided means when someone lands on a country and has to pay, because that's the only way this mechanic works, that player will roll the 2d10s, the 1 blue die, and the 1 situation die to determine what situation takes place. The situation die will direct you to which section of the situation book you will go to, and the number you roll on the dice will tell you which situation is happening from that section. There are 6 sections in the book of what situations can take place: disaster, economics and trade, global survival, military covert, scientific development, and social political, and all of them are equally as likely to have no impact on the game at all. But don't mind that, as just take a look at the crazy events that can happen in the world when one of these surprise situations goes off. Situation 77, economics and trade. The inflow of thousands of United Nations personnel has given Cambodian towns an economic lift. Cambodians who fled to the west following the communist takeover are sending significant sums of money to their families, trying their luck in developing enterprises in the Asian nation's capital. The diverse economic boost was unexpected, but badly needed. Cambodia gained $40 million. What happened? As rip-roaring exciting that news broadcast was, we can only go so long before we get back to our roots. So let's rip off Monopoly once again and talk about bankruptcy. Bankruptcy can be slow and painful, or be fast and just as painful. But if you go bankrupt for any reason, all money in countries that you still own must be turned over to the global banker and real estate syndicator respectively. But hold on, instead of going bankrupt and escaping this nightmare, what if you decided that you wanted to continue your business with another player? After all, who doesn't love a good corporate buyout? If a player going bankrupt has a bunch of stuff you want and you really don't want to move around 200 spaces several times for the chance of getting them, then you can buy out that player's portfolio, add them to your company, and continue the game with merged assets. All of the benefits of getting their stuff, and since it's a buyout, their company will ultimately be forgotten, and all it will cost you is unbelievable amounts of money. In order to complete a buyout, you need to pay off all of that player's debts in full, which can be accomplished by taking debt yourself if you're feeling risky, and you also need to purchase all of that player's countries at their quick sale value, which sounds like a lot, but you are getting them all for half of their board price. The bought out player will then remain on the board as one of your employees, with you making all the major decisions, and they will lose all of their consortiums except for their permanent one, which now becomes one of your secondary ones. But if the game is getting a little heated and you're looking for a leg up on the competition, you might want to instead work together with another player as equals by forming a joint venture. By paying off all debts and having one player pay the quick sale value of the other's countries, you and another player can outright merge companies, keeping both players' permanent consortiums and giving them both an equal say in the decision making. You know when your friend gets mad in Monopoly and they trade all their properties to someone for $1? Yeah, so imagine that, but now they're both on a team sharing the win. For an added bit of fun, try to divvy up some of the company responsibilities like the game does with the jobs. Have one player handle the money as the CFO while another handles the property as the senior asset manager or something. Should lead to a lot of fun infighting down the line. But you finally made it. You put up with all the crap this game has to offer, and now you're ready to win the game. So what is the definitive and established game end that signifies the conclusion of our match? Well, the rules say, unlike numerous other board games, there is no definitive or established game end. Unless all other players except one goes bankrupt. Oh, I'm gonna put an end to this game, alright. One of the absolute worst things that a game can do is to not commit to a win condition. It can add alternative ending options or encourage you to come up with your own in addition to the main one, but Global Survival is absolutely terrified of telling you how the game ends, and it is a massive detriment. It says that the only definitive end is the bankruptcy ending, but then it spends the rest of the determining winners section talking about something else entirely, the net worth ending. This is the ending that they describe when they say that Global Survival could literally be played for 1 hour or 1 week. Because whenever the players decide that it's time for the game to end, which of course will be agreed upon immediately and cause no strife based on who's in the lead, each player or conglomerate will calculate their net worth using the player fact sheet to get their final dollar value. Whoever has the highest dollar value wins, and all it will cost you is all of your friendships after everyone fought over the new win condition once they realized that the only one with a structure was going to take eons. Huh, board games are fun, and those are all the rules. What do I think of them? I've never described a rule set as cowardly before. Now, granted, there are some really cool ideas in here, like the job system and the situations. But when a game tells me to go ahead and make up my own ending, my first thought is, brother, that's your job. Plus, some of the mechanics are very poorly worded. The worst by far being when a situation should happen, which we just ended up figuring out through trial and error. So overall, the rules are not good, but do have enough cool stuff going on within them that you do want to work through the garbage in order to try that stuff out. So I'd say they end up with a serviceable rating. But really, all you need is for the rules to hold the game together enough for our next section to take over, as you won't even notice the massive problems if you're too focused in on the title's stellar gameplay. And now that the segue is out of the way, I think this might well be the worst put together game I've ever seen. The absolute best compliment that I can give the gameplay that would not get me branded an outright liar is that the game functions. You can play it to the end. And I say that with a bit of hesitation, because Global Survival is the closest I've seen a game get to the distinction of broken without ending up crossing the line. It technically operates. But how could the gameplay end up so bad if the rules were serviceable? Shouldn't those two be about the same? Well, yeah, they should be. Unfortunately, Global Survival kinda screwed up the whole idea when it decided to brutally and violently murder its own balancing. The $2.5 trillion starting amount is outright obscene. At best, 30% of the countries on this board cross over the $20 billion price tag, which is, may I remind you, not even a full 1% of your starting cash. As a comparison, Mediterranean Avenue is the lowest value property in Monopoly, and purchasing that will take 4% of your starting cash. Portugal doesn't even reach 1, and its relative spot on the board would be in the reds. This issue carries over to the costs associated with landing on the properties too. Let's say you land on and purchase Mexico for $195 billion, a decent chunk of change, nearly 8% of your starting fund, and now you're ready to make some serious pesos. And lo and behold, another player immediately lands on it. Sick, nasty, that guy's gonna feel the hurt today. After all, he now needs to give you the monstrous total of $60 million. Nice. Now they just need to land there another 3,253 more times, and you've officially broke even. I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. My boy, if you left New York Avenue completely untouched after buying it, you'd at least go green after 13 hits, and that board doesn't have 200 spaces. You can't even upgrade these properties. You're stuck with that base rent amount unless you can get all the properties on that continent. And if that happens, congrats buddy, Mexico turns green now after only 1,085 visits. You'll be rolling in it soon enough. Yeah, the gutter. The massive starting fund has made it to where you should never not buy a country that you land on. Because while you're never going to make that money back, the value of that country is immediately added to your net worth. So no wealth was lost in the transaction at all. It's pretty much meaningless whether you buy or not, and get used to that because meaningless is going to be a common theme here. There are only 3 countries in the whole game that might cause you to think about whether or not to buy them. Those being recently un-Soviet Russia for nearly $1 trillion, Japan back when it almost took over the world economy at $1.4 trillion, and the United States of America valued at $4.3 trillion. The US is the only country that you cannot get without utilizing the debt mechanic. And fun fact, if you do purchase America with this credit, then you've pretty much just lost the game. Debt in this game is literally less than useless, as you're going to need to pay that money back, and the only way to do that is by bringing in revenue from somewhere else. And as we've just established, you make no money in this game at all, ever. Your customs might as well be charging buttons and sticks for its fees. It would have the same impact. Let's just humor the game for a second and see what it would take to buy America and not end up dead. So the only reason you'd buy the country realistically would be to complete the global monopoly on North America. So you already paid cash for both Canada and Mexico, leaving you with around $1.9 trillion. You barely have enough cash to afford the price of the US if you borrow a little more than $2.4 trillion. So now you have no cash, all of North America, and $2.4 trillion of debt that you need to pay off. Fun fact, that is 18 times less than the United States owes in debt right now. Awesome. Now that you have completed the North American global monopoly, 2 things happen. The rent for each property triples, and you get the one-time reward payment, North America's being the highest in the game, at $500 billion. So you get that, get a chance to look at it for a little bit, and immediately now need to use all of it to pay off some of your debt to avoid interest. I cannot say I was expecting global paycheck to paycheck from this one. Congratulations, you now have no money and need to earn $1.9 trillion before your loan is called and they shoot you. But don't worry, you just need someone to land on America 633 times before that happens and you are smooth sailing for the rest of the game. Good luck out there, stud. So yeah, the debt should never be used, buying America is an instant loss, and the global monopolies cause more trouble than they are worth. But that last point really doesn't hit all too hard because it's logistically impossible to get one anyway. The North American global monopoly is the only one that you can reasonably hope to get, and it just outright kills you. The others will hurt your bank account less, but are very unlikely to happen because how in the world are you going to land on the exact 32 spaces that you need on this 200 space board to nab every South American nation? Oh, but Cam, you can just trade with the other players to get the countries you need. No, you can't. They don't have them either. We played a full game where my country sheet got filled up, and between all of the players, we did not collectively have a single global monopoly. It is just too unlikely unless you decide to play for several days. The most egregious example of the global monopoly problem is in Asia. Carrying 54 countries, not only is it nearly impossible to land on and acquire all of the green countries, but it is quite literally the only thing you can go for if you want it because your player sheet only comes with 54 country slots. May the Lord himself save your soul if another player gets a green and refuses to trade it, because your whole game is done now. Better start a joint venture, moron. Speaking of pointless mechanics, consortiums. These things are the main subject in the setting. The whole story revolves around their attempts to gain power for their members, and their presence is very hyped up. You want to know how many times consortiums came into play? Once. One of the players got to join the Tech Consortium. It did nothing, added nothing, and never caused anything cool to happen. How does a mechanic that plays an integral part in the game's plot come up one time in a 7-hour game? Why was it even added if it doesn't do anything but take up space on the rule sheet? Oh, it's because they could matter if they hit the right situation. In fact, the situations could also matter if they ever hit the right situation. How the sitches really work is the dice determine which one goes off, and then you see which country or consortium is affected. Then any player that falls into those categories resolves the effect. But the main problem there is that if no one falls into those groups, nothing happens. And brother, nothing ever happens. The consortium effects are more likely to land than the property ones, but those only account for like 1 out of every 15 situations. All the other ones are country-based, and how likely do you think it is that someone just happens to own Cambodia at this point? On top of that, seeing as it was the dominant economic power of the time, the US is involved in quite a lot of these. So it would be good to own that country so that you're involved more often if you already didn't get atomized by a loan shark. But with all of the nothing going on for everyone else, there is one player that is going to have plenty to do throughout the game: the global banker, as he is going to be making change from the second he takes the job to the day he dies. All of the prices are super specific down to the million, and with every player pretty much buying a property every turn, you are going to be breaking up those massive bills all game long. Oh, I landed on Swaziland. Yeah, I'll buy that. Alrighty, that comes out to $628 million. Sweet, yeah, I got that. Can you break a 500 billion? And after all of this madness, after all of the everything and all of the nothing going on, the game is all luck-based, just like all the other Monopoly ripoffs I covered. The gameplay is really just roll dice, write down country, maybe look up a pointless event, wait for nothing to happen. Repeat for a solid week, or more realistically, for however long it takes for someone to beg to do anything else. How this game managed to create several interesting mechanics and details and then find a way to utilize none of them is beyond me. I wouldn't be surprised if this was just never playtested, because I guarantee those people were not having fun while doing it. Speaking of fun, we still have to cover the game's fun factor. And after that last travesty of a category, I really don't have too high of hopes for this one, I'm not gonna lie. Now, this is going to be a strange category to try to explain, because while I was playing the game, I really didn't see myself having an actively bad time like I've had with other games. That being said, this game is nowhere close to anything that remotely resembles fun. I think the reason that this happened was because I like being the banker and jotting down information in these types of games, which I'm now realizing means I probably should have been an accountant. Oh, what's your favorite part of board games? The thrill of competition? Oh, that's cool. Mine's role-playing an entry-level teller job. It really was one of the most unique board gaming experiences I think I've ever had, because I could actively feel myself not having fun, but it wasn't putting me in a bad mood like Target the Game of Life did. I felt like I just had to keep playing like I was under some kind of spell. Now, this could have been due to me having good company whilst playing, I wasn't doing it all by myself, but it just made me feel like I was going through the motions, like my brain was truly turned off the whole time. As such, I have no idea who would actively enjoy this game. I can think of people who could make it through a shorter playthrough of it just fine, but not really anyone that would be like, yes sir baby, we're going surviving tonight. Have you ever seen one of them there Roblox type games where you slowly get some type of currency and you can either make the conveyor belt go faster or make the wall of your house bigger? Yeah, how you feel when you play that is how you'll feel playing this. As for people who I don't think will have a good time with this one, good lord, anyone that likes doing anything in their games. Making decisions, forming a strategy, heck, just having something happen to them that makes an impact in some way. This game is a nihilist dream. It is the purest form of nothing we do matters. It is actually impressive as to how little consequence your actions have on the game as a whole. And with that, all of our categories have been covered. So now it's time to answer the question we posed at the very start. You mindless glob, you almost forgot the most important. No whack crap this time. Just let me finish this off, please. This game is absolutely abysmal. Bar none, the worst game balance I have ever had to experience on a board. You cannot tell me that a game that includes an entire sheet and a whole job devoted to a debt mechanic that goes completely unused in a normal game is well designed. And it's not the only thing like this. 80% of every deed is just flavor text. Situations including a country that someone owns happen about 1 out of every 10 times. Consortiums are completely irrelevant. It's like they put together an awesome light fixture with a ton of moving parts and stuff and then just never plugged it in. It just doesn't function. Nothing shows just how little happens in this game, quite like what we discovered when we tallied up the results. Over the course of an entire 7-hour game, I increased my total net worth by $7 billion. Again, this might sound like a lot, but since I started the game with 2.5 trillion, this means that over the course of a game where I filled up my entire country sheet, I increased my total asset portfolio's value by 0.2%. If we ran those numbers through a game of Monopoly, this would mean that after starting with $1,500, the total value of all of my properties together, in addition to the cash that I had on hand at the end of a game that I won, would have equaled $1,503. I made the equivalent of 3 Monopoly dollars in 7 hours. And I made the most! And again, this is not the worst experience I've ever had playing a board game. In terms of how I felt playing it, Target the Game of Life generated a much more negative reaction out of me in the moment, but that's pretty much because I didn't feel anything during Global Survival. What emotion do I get out of spinning in circles for 7 hours? I don't know, man. Humber? I have no idea what kind of drive one must have to play this thing through to the bankruptcy ending. As in a game that causes an intense negative reaction, I can at least see the appeal of playing it out of spite. Who would want to turn their brain off for a week straight? The fact that this game is not boring, it's just nothing, makes it really hard to compare to other titles I've covered. Because it doesn't have the worst mechanics, it doesn't have the worst components, it doesn't have the worst ideas, none of its stuff is inherently terrible on its own. But the way the game has been crafted has left itself broken, it doesn't work properly. Normally, I'd spend this time going through strategies to help you if you wanted to win the game, and you know what? I'm gonna do that right now. Buy every country you land on, and if you land on a country but your sheet is full, sell your least valuable property and buy the new one. Now that we've exhausted the strategy portion, I want to end this video with an analogy that I think perfectly encapsulates what this game is when compared to its competitors. You might want to strap yourselves in, it's gonna be a long one. Board games are like race cars in this analogy. Each one has different strengths and weaknesses, and how well they do depends on how well they run. Oh look, here comes Monopoly. A very decorated vehicle indeed. He's found tons of success out on the track and continues to put up impressive numbers. A lot of people don't like the way it drives, and it receives tons of complaints every year, but regardless, you cannot deny that it is one of the best to ever do it. Coming up next, we've got one-upmanship. Now, this machine was one of the worst received arrivals to the scene, with some even considering it to be the worst to ever hit the track. But after a tune-up from the engineering team, drivers are reporting some pretty decent results with it nowadays, and a few more are starting to jump on board. Who's next? Oh, it's Capital Punishment. I've got to tell you, this car looks like crap, but boy does it run. Now, you aren't going to win many awards, or likely many sponsors driving this thing, but you take that out on the track and you're going to have a smooth ride with little mechanical issues. Our second to last vehicle out today, we've got Target, the Game of Life. Now, this car looks good. It's a new spin on a classic design, it's got some upgrades to the mechanical portions, heck, it's even got some corporate backing behind it. But man, have the drivers been reporting issues with its performance. They say it's slow, they say it's laden with issues, some of the drivers even report feeling misled as it drives way different than the original model. Goodness, just a real strange string of decisions that led to that one. And here we have the new star, Global Survival, making its track debut. Drivers are reportedly real excited to test it out. As with a deep range of features and interconnecting mechanisms, this baby sure has a lot of potential ahead of it. Oh no! The engine just fell right out the bottom of the vehicle. And all those awesome features now useless because they forgot to screw in the bolts that held the darn thing together. Yes sir, it looks like the driver's gonna have to get out and push it himself if he wants this thing to run at all. You hate to see it take so much effort on his part. Oh, goodness sakes, even the Fatal car is running better than that one. Johnny, that might be the worst put together car I've ever seen. Yeah, but you gotta admit, they got some nice belts on that bad boy. Oh, those are some fine belts, Johnny. You could take those belts off and wear them if you wanted to. You could wear those belts to a job interview and the guy'd give you his job. You could wear those belts to a concert and they'd pay to see you perform. You could wear those belts to a... The heck was I talking about here? Signing off for $2.4 trillion of credit card debt, I am KamSandwich. Thank you for watching and have a fantastic day. A special thank you to my suppliers, staff, and chefs over at the deli, as well as the media preservers helping me get these rare games ported for the public to enjoy. If you'd like to join the crew, you can take a look using the link in the description below.